National Assembly supplements the state broadcast with $30 million for electoral coverage. Ghana's central bank is initiating measures to introduce digital currency in the country's market in September this year. And elsewhere in Uganda, coronavirus hampers the treatment of hepatitis due to challenges of medical accessibility. These and more coming on The World today. Do stay tuned. Good evening, viewers. This is The World Today newscast here on Africa TV with me, Sohna Tunkara, and now to the news in detail. The National Assembly of the Gambia has on Wednesday approved the allocation of $30 million for the Gambia radio and television services as logistic to provide full coverage of the December 2021 presidential election. The Minister of Information, Communication and Infrastructure described the allocation as necessary given the financial constraint at the national broadcaster, and the allocation is part of the supplementary budget appropriation bill of $1.7 billion tabled before lawmakers by the Minister of Finance. Amindao has the rest of that story.
The Gambia Radio and Television Services requested a sum of over $98 million to strengthen the broadcaster on its national services. Lawmakers in Banjul, however, approved nearly one-quarter of that as suitable enough to fund the coverage of the upcoming presidential election in the Gambia. In his defense for the supplementary budget appropriation bill of 2021 on Wednesday, the Minister of Information, Communication and Infrastructure, Ibrahim Asila, says the role of GRTS is worth the cost.
I thank all the members that have shown interest in this and to assure them that it is a constitutional mandate placed on GRTS to provide coverage during election time for all the participating political parties in an election. And in that time, in fact, it is not even the GRTS, but the IEC that takes control of the allocation of airtime to all the political parties. Right now, the institution is constrained. We are not able to do, even for the essential news services, much more some of the demands that are being asked upon the institutions.
The National Assembly member for Jara Central, Keba Jalo, advocated for a whole approval of the $98 million request from the GRTS through the Information Ministry.
Honorable Speaker, if we want to have the GRTS that we need, or that we all yearning for, the amount that they requested, if at all it is not added, it should not be reduced. That is the 98 million. So on my side, Honorable Speaker, I'll be in support of the 98 million that they are requesting.
Despite the allocation of 30 million to the state TV, Halifa Salah, the representative for Serakunda, shared the view that the GRTS is not doing as expected, even with coverage of National Assembly sittings.
Honorable Speaker, the Ministry of Information, they're talking about elections. Yes, GRTS election. I will not be among those who will deny GRTS election, but I will say GRTS. I don't want to use that language, it will be unparliamentary. This institution is not covering us. There should be a live coverage of the sessions of this National Assembly, giving live coverage to TRRC. That's why people feel that nothing is happening here. People in the Gambia feel that this National Assembly is rubber stamped.
The budget allocated to the Gambia Radio and Television Services is expected to address mobility challenges together with digital broadcast equipment to position the broadcaster in the center of national duties during and after elections. For iAfrica News, I am Amindao.
National Assembly supplements GRTS with $30 million for election coverage. Now, Ghana's central bank is initiating measures to introduce digital currency into the country's market in September 2021. The move, according to financial experts, will help boost the country's economy and improve cash transactions within and outside of West African nation. The fast-growing mobile banking has yielded about $80 billion in the first quarter of 2021, according to the central bank. Details of that in this report.
Ghana Central Bank says it will start with a pilot of the digital currency ECD in September. The government wants to shift the country's economy into a cashless one. Analysts say the introduction of the digital currency can spur growth in the local economy.
In the long term, it's going to help us have a cashless society, facilitate international transaction, and then reduce cost of printing, and then ensure transparency in our financial transactions.
Ghana's local economy is largely dependent on cash, but the introduction of mobile money by telecommunications companies has been widely accepted over the last few years. The central bank says transactions in the first half of this year have hit nearly $80 billion. It believes a digital currency, when implemented, can further boost the economy. Still, analysts say more needs to be done to make it easy for Ghanaians to accept the ECD for financial services.
Infrastructure is very poor. We need to invest in infrastructure, millions of dollars. Government needs to do it. The service providers must also release funds to do it. And then the cost of internet service provision is also high. It has to come down so that everybody would have the interest in taking part or assessing it.
Analysts also want the central bank to find ways to reduce the security risks involved with transacting in electronic currencies. The central bank says the pilot phase of implementing the ECD will determine whether it's safe to release the digital currency on a broader scale for transactions. It, however, believes the ECD, when introduced, will be safer to use, unlike cryptocurrencies that are not regulated by the government.
From that, moving on, the latest move by the Zimbabwean government to augment the wages of civil servants did not go down with the latter, with many, including analysts, demanding for more. And considering the economic pressure in the Southern African country, some are demanding to be paid in foreign currency. And however, the government says it cannot meet all the promises. Here's details of that in this report.
Government says the salary adjustments fulfill a promise it made to stagger increases for hard-pressed employees after a 25% increment in April. However, civil servants and some analysts believe it's not enough.
Although it's not enough, but I believe it's a good step forward, given that the majority of our civil servants were now being classified as the working poor, where they are working, but what they are earning doesn't even suffice for them to earn equal to the poverty bottom line.
Civil servants are also unhappy that this was a unilateral decision by the government, which was not driven by the collective bargaining exercise that would have ensured that the employees' demands were also put on the table. One of them is to be paid in US dollars. School teacher Munyaradzi Masiwa has been grappling to make ends meet since the reintroduction of the greenback as legal tender.
The only thing that will change our lives is a restoration of our US dollar salaries. The economy of Zimbabwe is now in US dollars. Everything you want to buy, you are asked to pay in US dollars. We are earning an equivalent of around 280 US dollars right now, and our demand is 540 US dollars, and you can see the difference.
Treasury says it's unable to meet the demand despite posting budget surpluses.
So if you have a surplus, that means you can pay. You have extra money that you can pay. And if you're working, the majority of the people that are working for you in poverty, and you are claiming that you have a surplus, that means you have the resources to pay them.
Labour unions say they will keep pressing their demands, and some, representing teachers, have warned that their members may not return to work when schools resume after the current COVID-19-induced closure.
Zimbabwean government gives 50% wage increment to its civil servants. Now we will go with a short commercial break, and when we return, we take a broader look at our remaining stories.
The locations, the design, the materials used, all the way down to the latest details are few of many things that we focused on when we envisioned the airport residency. As proud innovators of community estates, the airport residency in Old Yundum, a project by Swami India International, offers unique gated community with 3- and 4-bedroom villas and duplexes. Just 5 minutes away from the Banjul International Airport. Luxury, convenience, and accessibility are some of the reasons you should consider this great housing opportunity. With a clubhouse, a playground, access roads, and parking facilities available for your dream home or a valuable investment, you will find all you need at Airport Residency here in Old Yundum.
Welcome back. If you're just joining, this is the World Today newscast, and to our remaining stories. Patients with hepatitis are faced with challenges to access to medical health care in Uganda thanks to the impact of COVID-19 global pandemic. The government imposed measures to stem the spread of the virus has further worsened the situation, leaving many struggling to foot their medical bills. And according to the Global Health Organization, about 550 people die from the disease every day in Africa, leaving health officials worried about the situation. Details of that in this report.
Sarah Ankunda suffers from chronic hepatitis B, a virus that attacks the liver. She has suffered with the disease since childhood, but only recently found out she was infected. Since the pandemic hit, she has struggled to maintain her routine checkups.
COVID has hit me because it has caused poverty on my side, and I can't afford the medical bills. I can't afford the the yearly checkups.
A 42-day lockdown and the suspended public transport has further complicated matters, not just for Sarah, but other patients as well. According to figures from the World Health Organization, 550 people in Africa die from the disease every day. Health workers are now worried this figure could go up because of limited access to health care. Hepatitis is a viral disease which spreads through blood and bodily fluids, requiring treatment and monitoring. Doctors are also worried that if patients are not given proper care, they could get cancer of the liver.
You will start facing symptoms like vomiting, abdominal distension, dark-colored urine, and itching of the skin. These symptoms will only come when the disease has progressed and it is poorly managed.
Doctors and activists are calling on the government to ease restrictions for patients seeking treatment for hepatitis B and also extend specialized care services to their homes.
We are saying that hepatitis can't wait even for COVID, because the fact that there is a pandemic doesn't mean that hepatitis is no longer there. It is only meaning that it is getting worse, and it is worsening each day and each night. So we are saying it can't wait for decisions to be made. It can't wait for more domestic funding.
But for now, patients like Ankunda will have to wait a little longer as government battles the pandemic, which it says has increased the burden on the country's health system.
COVID-19 global pandemic affects the treatment of other deadly diseases in Africa. Now, parliamentarians have on Wednesday adopted the supplementary appropriation bill presented by the Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs for additional expenditure of $1.5 billion for the fiscal year 2021. Fatmata Kassim takes us through.
The legal requirements for the presentation of a supplementary appropriation bill to the National Assembly members are detailed out in the 1997 Constitution and the Public Finance Act of 2014. According to the minister, the main objective of the bill is to provide additional public services, including national security, election-related services, infrastructure, pandemic and disaster-related services, as well as commitments to international financial institutions. The Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs says their intention for the supplementary budget proposal is to address certain government operations that they plan to embark on for the remaining 2021 fiscal year.
Key among this includes the shortfall for financing upcoming election-related activities. Other expenses include the compensation of affected landowners on the planned extension of the Battle-Harden Highway and the construction of secondary roads in preparation for the hosting of the next year's OIC Summit. The areas associated with the construction of the Kaling Bustown and Bassa Yoruba roads, the toll facility at the Senegambia Bridge, the settlement of some of our equity areas due to international and regional development banks, the purchase of life support ambulances to be distributed across the country, scholarship areas owed to University of the Gambia, and finance for security-related activities are also key objectives of the proposals. Honorable Speaker, I will now provide details of the specific supplementary appropriation bill.
After a heated debate among members of the parliament on the scrutinization of the SAP, the fate of the bill was decided by the majority of the NAMs. Dauda Kausu Jawara, the National Assembly member for Upper Fulado West, was of the opinion that the money should be put into areas that are of interest to the nation.
Why should we be going to buy cars, paying areas, equity participations, vehicles for governors, roads and bridges, when we have no food security? Indices will show you how much the Gambian poor farmers or the Gambian population are paying between 2018 and now in terms of the bag of rice. How much has the bag of rice risen? And what is affecting that? Because we are not boosting local production of rice. Instead, no, we are spending monies where we're not supposed to be spending them, and then relying on the world market to supply our staple food.
However, the National Assembly member for Serekunda, Halifa Salah, said they are given two lessons, which includes the need to have money and the power to oblige to buy a contract of termination to pay this huge sum. He raised a question on the payment of areas, which will enable effective accountability.
Is that how members of this body should think? Under Section 112, we are supposed to be guided by law, conscience, and the national interest. So when we think, we are not supposed to be emotional. We're not supposed to be sentimental. We're not supposed to be thinking in the box. We're supposed to be free to own our minds and selves. I'm not attacking anybody. I thought that I'm leaving a legacy here. I'm leaving no legacy, Honorable Judge. I'm just here. This was a period where we should be learning from each other to know how to do our job. We are doing a job. And we should do so with efficiency and effectiveness, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, it is very clear that these two elements on which our consideration should be situated are present: expenditure and the sources of funding. So what we need to do is to scrutinize what constitutes the expenditure which we are being asked to approve, so that ultimately it becomes the appropriation bill.
Section 153, subsection 1 of the 1997 Constitution of the Republic of the Gambia requests a supplementary estimate be laid before the National Assembly for approval if the amount appropriated under the Appropriation Act is insufficient or that a need had arisen for a purpose for which no amount has been appropriated by that Act. Reporting for iAfrica News, I am Fatoumata Kasim.
Well, with that story, a National Assembly adopting $1.5 billion for the supplementary appropriation bill brings to end the World Today newscast with me, Sohna Tungara. For more national stories, you can catch up with Mariama Cham on Gambia 24 at 19:30 GMT. Thanks for watching. Good evening.